What's up? What's up? We're going to get started here in just a few moments. Want to make sure the audio is working and it's good. Stay tuned. All right. And we should be live. Hopefully you're hearing this okay. Hopefully you're seeing this okay. Hopefully you're live seeing this and hearing this and it's okay. Uh, but how's that? That's probably better. Sorry guys, I'm learning new tech things as I try to stream and try to make things a little more, um, what do you say, seamless and just better. So you'll have to let me know if you think this is the best stream yet. So shout out if my wife is watching, Claire, how's the audio? How's it sound? Let me know if it's good. All right, today, guys, I making rad designs with Brad. I'm Brad, of course, and I'm happy to help make you make some rad designs in Canvas. We're going to talk Canvas with Cidi Labs and how to do gradient backgrounds, which is a little bit of a hack, but that's what we're going to talk about. So if you haven't joined, I like to talk all things tech. I like to talk Cidi Labs. I like to talk Canvas. I do work for Cidi Labs now, but I used to work for a school district integrating Canvas. And so these are my jams, and now I'm just here to share it with you. So a gradient, if you see the top of my banner there, you got a gradient up top, and it's a transition of color. So let's talk about what this looks like and yeah, all things gradients. So I'm gonna pop over here and let's cut this. There we go. There we go. So we're talking gradients. A gradient is a transition of color from, in terms of Canva, not canvas, not canvas, Canva. The gradient goes from this like teal blue to this purple, right? It transitions over the space of that header. They also do it in their logo, and so because of that, I mean, there's a lot of tools out there that are using gradients now to bring a little bit of life. So here's a cool tool I like to use to find ideas for gradients called CSS gradient.io. CSS means Cascade Styling Sheet. For you web designers, you know what that means. For you teachers, that's basically a sheet that has the style formats for a website or a web page. And in this case, we're going to play around with background as one of the styles and applying that in Canvas. So we'll come back to this sort of gradient picker, but there's lots of gradients out there. You can have linear gradients, you can have radial gradients where you kind of have, let's see here, a rounded gradient that transitions, or maybe something like a little vignette over here. I like to stick with these linear ones from top to bottom, or you have a gradient from like left to right. So we're going to talk about how you rotate that and add it to a Canvas page. So that being said, let's look at an example. I'm going to take this fourth grade example. Not a bad design here. We got a fourth grade learning targets. We have the Canvas page. This is a typical Canvas page. It has a title. In this example, we're using a header here, but you know what? I don't love that this is an image. It's not actually text. So when you hover over it, it doesn't highlight it. And that makes it a little bit less accessible for you screen readers that are out there. You're going to have to do some alt text on it. And also, if I were to share this or duplicate it, it's hard to customize that text in there. So I'm going to show you a better way to do that with Cidi Labs. But yeah, and then we have some emojis, and it looks like we have this unordered list of different learning targets for the fourth grade. Um, so yeah, another example, I have a fourth grade reading about electricity. Again, we have a header that's an image, And then we have this sort of read this, read this document about electricity. And then we have another chunk where we have this, I think this is an image actually, and then of dots. And then we have this video that they're showing. So again, I like that this is chunked, so that's really good. But it's a little bit kind of just bland, and so we're just going to spice it up with some Design Plus. So if I were to apply some gradients to this, I can do that actually with Design Plus. Boom! I can take those learning targets and do a couple things. One, this is a title, which now I'll show you. We can play around with the different designs, but this is text that is editable. Here I have a content block that has kind of a white background, and inside of it I have the different targets, and these targets have a leading icon, and these icons are cool. They're not emojis, they're actual icons, and so the screen reader won't stumble over these emojis. Have you ever seen that? Do you even know what I'm talking about? This icon versus an emoji. Let me show you. So if I were to come to the first page, the learning targets, and I were to activate the screen reader here, immersive reader, you're going to see that there's a couple things going on. One, the header is not red. There's just this sort of image block here, which is kind of not super cool. Also, these emojis, they get read by the screen reader and they kind of sound funny. So here's what they sound like.
Fourth grade, learning targets. Learning targets 1.png. Microscope. I can describe how energy is transferred by light, sound, and heat. PS3.b. Man scientist light skin tone. I can explain how electric currents transfer energy. PS.
All right, did you hear that? It said microscope. I can describe how energy is transferred. So it reads the emoji as the emoji. It said man light skin tone microscope. I can explain how electric. So you can imagine a kid with reading, excuse me, with visual impairment, how that might sound to them, and that could be very confusing in reading off of these learning targets. So that's why you got to be careful in how you use emojis. Let me show you that same setup, but using the Cidi Labs tools and with Immersive Reader. Again, notice that we have a header. We do have the title here, and then we have a header number one or number two, and so that is actually duplicate, which is kind of annoying. But notice that the items, the targets, are actually in an ordered list, and the emoji is icon is not even disruptive at all. And so again, let's go ahead and just jump to, can we start it here?
Grade learning targets with Cidi Labs. I can describe how energy is transferred by light,
Okay, so you get the
sound.
point. I'm not here to do a full thing on accessibility and reading, but it's important to design with accessibility in mind. And with Cidi Labs, you can do that a lot easier in Canvas. All right, I also have my gradient going from dark blue to red, which is, I selected some colors that are in my school color scheme, which is cool. Here's the other example. Notice I'm using a background. This one actually doesn't have a gradient in the background color. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'll show you how I'm gonna add that gradient to it. I'm just using a background color, but notice how much easy it is to see the two activities that the student needs to complete. So I tried not to do a whole bunch of changes here, just a little bit of style and design. And I hope you can see if I were to compare and contrast this is the first activity, right? So you can see what they're asked to do. I do like, maybe I should increase my font size for my title. That I could get behind that. But this is not an image, right? This is now just headers. Um, and let's see, going into the second part, and we go into the second part. So very similar, just a little bit more splash of color, which I just really love and I think my kids appreciate. And then here's the side by side for those learning targets. Again, I'm using the splash of color to add a little bit of gradient action. So how do we do these gradients? Well, I'm going to start on this non-Cidi Labs side, just so you can see this. If you don't have a license for Cidi Labs, your school district would need to add that as an add-on. Super affordable. I think well worth it. but it is an add-on, so you'll need to work with that. So let me show you how to do this without. This does require some coding, so heads up, here we go. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, get to my page where I want to add the gradient. And the next thing I'm going to do is go find the gradient code. So the code is pretty simple, right? If I want to make one of these gradients, I can come to like a gradient selector like this tool here. I can, create my gradients using the gradient sliders, which is really nice. You can add your different colors here. You can also, if you want to, you know, get rid of one of these colors and just go from the blue to the yellow. So you can pick and choose. The colors are described by these hex codes. They also can have an RGB color, so red, green, blue mixture, and then they have like an opacity scale. And so to the code behind this is down here. The CSS is background, and then we're doing a colon. We have linear gradient. We're going to shift it 90 degrees so it goes from left to right. And then we have the color, and then we have the second color. So that's kind of the code. There is an easier way to write colors. Instead of doing RGB, you can do the hex codes. So I like to use this Mozilla tool. This is another way to look up, gradients. So again, background, linear gradient. We're shifting this one 90 degrees to go from left to right, and then we have the two colors involved. So I like this because it's a real simple CSS code. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that code. I'm going to go back to, oh, sorry, hold on. Well, let's just do it real quick and then we'll change the color. I'm going to go back to Canvas and I'm going to flip over to the HTML editor in Canvas. So this is where things get a little bit complicated and why I would say just buy Design Plus. But here we go. So I'm going to flip into this thing, and the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to put my cursor at the very top. I'm going to add a space, and I'm going to start creating a div. A div is like a block inside of an HTML editor. So I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to add style to this div. I'm going to say equals parentheses, and I'm going to paste that background linear gradient 90 degrees and the two colors I want it to transition. We're going to go ahead and close the div with this little open alligator, close alligator. And notice that it automatically puts in this like closing div tag. So these are called div tags. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut that div tag and bring it to the very bottom of my screen and paste it down at the bottom. So basically I'm wrapping this background gradient. I'm wrapping all of my content in this background gradient color. All right, let's flip it back over to the rich content editor and bam! Look at that. Look at that. We now have a gradient going from left to right of the two colors. And there you go. That's it. That's how you add background gradients to your content. What's up? Okay, the problem, one challenge you're going to run into immediately is you're going to see that your text is going to have some contrast issues. Again, this is another accessibility concern. So you have to be very mindful of where you use gradients and how you use gradients. So if this is the case, I like to then put a white background. You'll see this in my example here, right, where I put this white background around this content block so that my text is easily seen with contrast. But if you do this method like I just showed you, it gets a little bit more complicated. So a couple options you could do is you could wrap the text in a, you could do white background for all this text. So this is probably not the best way to do it, but you could do something like that where you just do a highlight the text. Another option would be to actually come into your code and put an inner div with that style and make background color for your inner div. So this is one way that you do it. We'll just say white. Okay, there we go. And we're going to close that div, which it didn't close. So let's just close it manually. So I closed that div and we'll place it. There we go. So now we have an open and a closed div, and we'll come back and oh my goodness, now I've just made everything white. What did I do wrong here, Bradley? So you can see if you know dealing with CSS, it gets a little complicated. So even my what I thought would be the solution, guys, this is live by the way. Even what I thought I would do as a solution, which is nest a div inside of a div. Oh, I know what's going on. I'm gonna undo. I know what's going on. My div inside my div has a little bit of, you can't, they're basically the same size divs. So I'm gonna do a little bit of padding on my upper div. Give it maybe, let's give it 20 pixels of padding. And hopefully this brings it, oh my goodness, look at that. Look at that. All right, so that's a cool design. So if you did this without Cidi Labs, that's how you would kind of approach that. You can do that. You get some padding on that. Maybe I want to add some padding on my inner div. So what you're seeing here is I'm doing a little bit of HTML, CSS coding. Let's go 10 pix on my inner div. I'm doing some HTML coding to try to make my content look better for my students and still be accessible. So this is kind of the approach that you would take. Again, it requires a lot of kind of drilling into the coding and dealing with coding to manipulate and deal with that. So I don't totally love that. Um, so let me show you how we do that with Design Plus. So this is not a bad approach, and it works. Again, this image is an image, so you can't actually change that text if you wanted to, adjust this text if you're going to use it in some other page. So that becomes a little cumbersome. Let's talk what you can do and how we did this with Cidi Labs. So with Cidi Labs, I'm going to go ahead and just can I undo? Yeah, again, guys, live demo here, folks, live demo here. So with Cidi Labs, what's really cool about this is we have a sidebar. The sidebar is called Design Plus, and the sidebar can pop open so you can do some of these fancy styling without having to do some of the fancy styling. So for example, I've added a theme to this page, and with that theme, there are a lot of options of different theme styles that I could choose from. So if I wanted to adjust maybe my banner title to have that, red, primary red color, or if I wanted the gray color or the white color. So I can get in here and adjust my header and my banner and my style simply by selecting one of these other, style designs. So that's really cool. The other thing that I've done is I've added a background to the page. So I did that actually by hopping into my style editor. So what you saw me do earlier with the code, you can come into the style editor and you can highlight different elements on the page. So if you wanted to just adjust the header, or if you just wanted to talk about the title there. In this case, I want to do the full page. I can come into the full page and I can adjust the styling for the entire page itself. And so I've already previously done that. So maybe I should just pull that out. Maybe I can just get the content out, and we'll just do it again. I'll just do it from the ground up. So let's get rid of that. There we go. And now I'm coming back to my background tool. So I've added a background to this. I haven't done the gradient just yet. So let me come back. Here we go. Default. So I haven't done the gradient just yet, but I've added the background to this. To add that background, I selected my theme. I came and I selected the full page here, and then I went down and just enabled this background tool. And I could have used the background color, but I'll kind of show you why I did the background tool. So I enable the background tool, and now under the style editor here, I can choose background, and I can pick different colors that I want for my background tool. So this is an easy way for me to select some branding colors. These are variables that are set at your school level to quickly grab the branding colors, or we have some miscellaneous colors if you don't like any of the branding colors and you just need a splash of color and you want to do that pretty quickly. You can see adding the background tool and then just selecting one of these colors immediately brings some of those primary colors right into the page. And you know, a lot of times you don't want to do all this custom work all the time. You just want a little bit of changes, um, you know, at various times. And so once I have this page saved and I duplicate it, I can come and easily change the next color to whatever I want it to be. So if I want, I like that blue or I like that red, whatever. So the background tool lets you do that. You can also get fancy smancy um, and choose like an image. So if you have, an image that you want to use, you can see now I kind of have this waterfall image as my background color. So there's some other fancy stuff you can do, just right out of the gates. I'm going to undo because I don't want to use an image right now. I just want to show you some other cool stuff with the background tool. So you can choose different shapes on the background tool. If I wanted to do like a wedge, right, you can do these different shapes that you can create. I can do the rounded border, and so now I got this nice rounded border for my background. And then the other thing we have some built-in gradients already. And what's nice about that is if you had text on top of this background tool, where I have a content block that's on it, but if you just had text on this, it would show you the accessible contrasts. So in this case, the black text, whatever. So that's awesome. But if you don't like any of those, gradients that we've just selected, again, without doing any coding whatsoever, boom, that's how you do it without any coding. But if you're like, man, I want to get fancy and do kind of my own fancy, gradient colors, you can still come into the HTML code. Now notice, I don't have to go and switch over to this code here, which is complicated. I just selected the attributes, which is one of our advanced tools. You can select that, highlight the block that you want to deal with. So in this case, I want my background block. And then right here is that style tag. So if we come back to this and let's grab our little gradient code. Where's my little gradient code? There we go. If I grab that little gradient code and I come into the style tag and I just paste it, boom, now you can see that that gradient is applied because I've selected the background. So it's that easy to add the gradient colors to it. So that's really awesome. If you wanted to say I wanted to use my school colors instead of this pink and purple because that was the default from the other web page. You could select your color codes, and if you don't know the hex codes, I love this tool called not Mozilla, called ColorZilla. So ColorZilla is a Google Chrome extension. It lets you select, colors from your screen and you use this little eyedropper and you can kind of hover over the different colors and then you can, click on it and it will tell you what that hex code is and it saves it to your clipboard. So you can come in here and now I can just paste that hex code into my background tool and then I can do the same thing. I've already sampled the red, so I'm just going to go select it from my history. I'm going to grab the hex code right here and let's place it right there. And boom, now I have that blue to red gradient using Cidi Labs. So I showed you a couple things. I showed you the style, the background tool, the sidebar, the ability to adjust the background with some shapes, and then also using the attributes tool, the ability to easily add things like padding or excuse me, custom styles like the linear gradient. The other styles you would just go into the style editor and you can adjust the other style things from here. For example, the main color, or maybe you wanted to add some spacing. You can do all of that shifting from here. So there I just added 50 pixels of spacing. So you can see without knowing any code, you can do a lot of styling using our cool style editor. All right, let me show you one more example, which I already did. This one already has that background tool applied to it. So I'm just going to go in and one more time, I'm just going to copy where is it? Where is it? Copy the gradient here, the gradient color, and I'm going to come in, open my little sidebar, select the background, select the attributes for my background, which there's a lot of them, and then I'm just going to adjust my gradient. Again, you could pick different colors if you want. I'm not going to. I'm going to hit save, And now I have this really fun background gradient, and that page looks really nice. I got one more thing to show you. If I were a district leader or a school leader, I could save this sort of structure into my customizations course. And that way, so here's my customizations course. And your schools can set up content blocks. They can set up page templates custom so that teachers can just pull those in a snap. So let me show you how that works. So the school or district would set it up here in the customizations course, and I'll just show you. I've already gone into this customization course. I've added all these templates. You see these templates here? So you can see I have one called Big and Clean Learning Targets. I also have one called Activity Page. So here's the customizations course for the activity page one. Here's my Big Clean Learning Targets. Notice that I tried to strip everything out so that it's really easy for the teacher to just modify once they get it. So these are templates. So let me show you how the teacher would pull it in. So if I were a teacher, I would open up a page inside of Canvas. And if it was a brand new page and I wanted to start fresh or a brand new assignment, I could open the Quick Start Wizard, and I have two options, templates or content blocks. So I'm going to come down here, and under my elementary section, I have that activity page and I have the big clean learning targets. So I can select that template, and I can boom immediately drop it into any page. And now I can just edit this, like I normally would in Canvas, edit my content accordingly, and away I go. If I wanted to, again, here's the title, right? Change the title. This is for, we're going to be learning about circuits or whatever it is. Um, wow. Yeah, got it. For a second, I'm like, how do you spell circuits? If I wanted to get more advanced and I wanted to change these icons, then I would open the little sidebar up. Under the style section, you can see I have an icon selected, and I can just come here and decide to choose, from the thousands of icons, and I can change the icons accordingly. So I just select the icon that I'm working on, and I decide I want to change that one. I'm going to pick on the house, and I want to change that one to the bike. So you can customize that template once it's in your page. Even if I wanted to get into that background and open up the attributes and adjust the colors, maybe I want to go from like a gray to the red, right? So I can get in there and I can do some adjustments to that template and make it my own. So with the Quick Start Wizard, you can pull in those templates. You also can, in the Quick Start Wizard, come to content blocks, and these are content blocks that your district or school provides. We also have some Cidi Labs provided ones. And so maybe there's a couple content blocks you're like, hey, I really like, those colored cards. Let's do that one. Let's add that to my page. And also let's do one more. Let's add let's do this lecture hook and a footer. So now you can see I've added all those elements to my page. I'm going to go ahead and hit done, and you can see they're added, and I can now, adjust the name of this. I can tweak change the link. I can adjust the name. I can even add an icon to that one if it didn't have an icon before. So there's a lot of designing you can do in these pages to just make them stand out, make them awesome, make them look great. Here, let me save this page and just make them rad. So the rad part is just talking about background gradients, but I wanted to also highlight some of the other cool design things you can do. That page looks way more attractive and something I think my students would want to do than what it was before, which was just kind of boring text with links. So yeah, in summary, gradients are cool. You can customize those in Canvas with or without Cidi Labs. With Cidi Labs, there's a whole lot more you can do in terms of bells and whistles and adding page themes and embedding your modules on a home page and adding accordions and expanders and adding tabs that where you embed your FET stuff, or adding quick checks with answers and feedback and flip cards, and there's a whole lot more that you can do inside of Canvas with Cidi Labs. And if you want to check it out, I'm happy to give a demo. Let me know. With that, thanks for Thanks for sticking in and tuning in. And I hope you have a rad day. And I hope you have a rad day designing something rad. Take care.